My parents never wanted me, but I left and started my own business. But my parents wanted to steal my money and sue me. My parents were never fond of me. They were high school sweethearts and even attended the same college. They had grand plans to travel the globe and immerse themselves in different cultures. But all of those dreams were dashed when my mother discovered she was pregnant while still in college. They considered terminating the pregnancy, but their parents didn't allow it. Eventually, my mother had to drop out of college and stay with her parents because she couldn't handle the gossip and judgment from others. That's how I came into the world. My mother despised me, but my grandparents adored me. For a long time, I believed my mother was my sister, and my grandparents were my parents. As she never spent time with me, she would either ignore me or yell at me if I sought her attention. My father was also absent, so I had no idea he even existed. My parents continued dating during this time. I understand they didn't want a child, but as a child myself, I couldn't grasp why they hated me. My grandparents on both sides would spend time with me, babysit me, and treat me kindly. By the time my father graduated from college, I had started to walk and talk. He began feeling guilty for not being involved in my life, so he started visiting me every weekend. I thought he was just a friend of my grandparents. My mother hated seeing him spend time with me and always told him to ignore me. But my grandparents encouraged him to get to know me, and that's how I discovered he was my father. Once he got a job, he proposed to my mother and they moved in together. My father wanted me to move in with them so they could take care of me, but my mother was adamantly against it. My grandparents were aging and wanted my parents to take responsibility for their actions. Reluctantly, my parents took me in, and at the age of 5, I moved in with them. Saying I hated living with my parents would be an understatement. It was like the light in my life was replaced by darkness. My mother constantly reminded me to be grateful for staying with them and threatened to kick me out if I did something wrong. My father worked all day and came home late at night when I wanted to spend time with him. He would tell me he needed some time alone and urged me to go to bed, saying he couldn't handle me that day. I went from living with my loving grandparents to living with parents who despised me. I didn't understand why, but I knew I was unwanted. My parents never bought me toys or treats like other kids. Sometimes I went to school with incomplete assignments, and when my teacher called my mother, she would scream at me for being lazy and tell me to take responsibility for my studies. I was so terrified of her that I started doing my homework diligently, hoping she would accept me someday. But she never did. My father didn't care about my daily activities or school performance and continued living in his own world. As I grew older, I began to understand how my parents truly felt about me. I noticed how differently my parents treated me compared to other kids. I watched as other parents dropped off their children, hugging, kissing, and smiling at them. I never experienced any of that. It was as if I lived with strangers. This made me question whether I was truly my parents' biological child. Whenever I visited my grandparents, I asked them, and they assured me that I was indeed my parents' child, and explained that my parents just needed time to mature. Meanwhile, my mother never missed an opportunity to say hurtful things. She mocked my hair, glasses, and weight, and would say things like, if she had been in high school with me, she would have bullied me mercilessly. It was bizarre to hear such things from my own mother. I was allergic to milk, something my grandparents knew well, but my mother refused to accept it. One day, she forced me to drink milk, claiming I was faking my allergy to be cool and that kids in her time never had allergies. This resulted in a severe allergic reaction, and I ended up in the hospital. The incident shook her, especially when the police came to talk to her. After that, she learned her lesson and never gave me milk again. My dad also yelled at her and she cried. My grandparents rushed to the hospital to be with me, and there was a lot of discussion while I was recovering. After this incident, my parents' attitude towards me softened. My mother started waking me up for school and helping me get ready, and my dad would spend time with me in the evening and tuck me into bed. I don't know what changed, but they began treating me like a human being. It was strange, but pleasant to see my mom asking about school, or my dad inviting me to watch football games with him. This is how I began to get to know my parents better. I think I was born with a lot of empathy because I didn't hold any resentment towards them. The three of us would sometimes go to the beach on weekends, which remains one of my favorite memories. I was no longer jealous of the kids in my class because my parents started to show me some love. When I turned 15, I discovered a talent for crocheting, a skill my mom's mother had taught me. By this time, my grandfather had passed away, and my grandmother would crochet and sell her beautiful handmade creations at the local craft fair each year to earn a few $100s. The intricate patterns and vibrant colors she used fascinated me, and I eagerly absorbed every detail of her craft. As I spent more time honing my crocheting skills under her guidance, a deep passion for creating unique and personalized items blossomed within me, inspired by my grandmother's entrepreneurial spirit. I decided to try selling my own crochet creations with her encouragement. I set up a small booth at the same local craft fair where she showcased her work. The response was overwhelming, and I quickly realized that my passion could also be a source of income. Word spread about my talent, and soon I was taking custom orders from classmates, friends, and even people in the community. Each piece I crafted told a story, and customers were drawn to the idea of owning something handmade and unique. As my small business grew, so did my skills and creativity. I began experimenting with different yarn, textures, colors, and patterns, pushing the boundaries of traditional crochet. My creations evolved from simple scarves and blankets to intricate wearables and home decor items. The positive feedback and repeat customers fueled my determination to refine my craft further. When I started earning significant money, my grandmother suggested I open a savings account to manage my finances better. My grandmother suggested saving my earnings for college when I shared this with my parents. Their eyes widened in shock upon hearing how much I had been earning. Until then, they thought crocheting was just a silly hobby. When they realized I was making a significant amount of money for my age, they vehemently opposed it. My dad threatened to burn all my crochet pieces and insisted he wasn't working hard to pay for my education so I could waste time on stupid things. My mother banned me from visiting my grandmother's house. They demanded that I hand over the money I had earned, but when I told them it was all with my grandmother, they called her and started yelling. When my grandmother realized they were trying to take my money, she refused to give them anything, while my parents screamed about how they deserved every cent. This made me realize my parents hadn't changed over the years. They were still as selfish and self-serving as ever. I couldn't give up my passion for crocheting, and I wasn't about to lose out on earning money that could potentially fund my college education. Seeing how my parents behaved, there was a good chance they might not even send me to college, so I needed to take matters into my own hands and work towards my future. I devised a plan to visit my grandmother's house every weekend to work on my designs. I lied to my parents, telling them I was spending time and sleeping over at my best friend's house, who knew about the situation and supported me. I would then go to my grandmother's place, and we would crochet together to fulfill the pouring orders from clients. My grandmother played a pivotal role in building my business, and I also embraced different online platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook to reach a broader audience. Social media became a powerful tool for showcasing my work and connecting with fellow artisans. The digital realm opened up endless possibilities, allowing me to share my passion with a global community. Over the years, my small booth at the local craft fair transformed into a thriving online business. My grandmother helped me open a bank account with her as a co-owner. I trusted her completely, and thanks to her, I could save all my earnings for college. She believed in me when my own parents only wanted to take my money for themselves. Once my mother went through my phone without my knowledge and discovered my online business and that I was still operating it behind their backs. This led to a huge fight with my parents, screaming at both me and my grandmother. They demanded I withdraw all the money I had earned and give it to them, since they claimed they had raised and taken care of me all my life. I was on the verge of tears trying to explain that the money was for my college and that I wasn't harming anyone. My dad yelled that I had gone behind their backs and that he could no longer trust me. My mother demanded I delete my Instagram page and stood right next to me to ensure I did it. I cleverly deactivated my account instead, planning to reactivate it. Once I was free from my parents, they then implemented strict phone restrictions from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. They also started tracking my location and monitoring my entire internet history, with notifications triggered if I searched for anything they deemed inappropriate, even innocuous things like shopping for underwear. I was only allowed to go out with my friends twice a week, but I had to come straight home afterward, or they would call me and my friends multiple times. Occasionally, I was allowed to hang out with my grandma for a few hours after school, but they banned me from crocheting with her. Otherwise, they threatened to take away my phone and internet access. There were many days when I just wanted to run away, but I was still 16 and had no way out. I asked my parents to let me have a part-time job at a local cafe, which they allowed, but demanded 25% of my earnings. I agreed without argument, giving them 25% every week, and the remaining 75% to my grandma to deposit into my bank account. My parents continued to make my life difficult by regularly barging into my room at odd times to check my space, go through my chats and emails, and monitor my location. If I didn't follow their rules, I was either grounded or forced to give them more of my earnings that week. Despite everything, I focused on excelling at school and getting good grades. I knew that getting into a good college was my ticket to escaping this life. So I worked tireless early the night before I turned 17. I packed everything I had bought for myself, leaving behind items my parents had given me, including my phone. I wiped my phone clean to ensure they couldn't find any information about me. I also knew my parents wouldn't allow me to take anything they had bought, so I didn't. My plan was set. My grandma came to pick me up early in the morning so I could finally move in with her. My parents were shocked to see me leaving and started arguing with my grandma, threatening to involve the police. I told them to go ahead since I was now 17 and could make my own decisions. They tried to blackmail me, saying they would tell everyone I was an ungrateful daughter and that everyone would shun me for leaving my parents. I didn't care. They also threatened to withdraw any support for college, but I smiled, knowing I had saved enough and was eligible for a scholarship. As I walked out of the house, I felt a mix of fear, relief, and determination. Little did I know my journey was about to take an unexpected turn. The first few weeks at my grandma's place were a breath of fresh air. The strict restrictions were lifted, and I could finally breathe without constant monitoring. The first thing I did was buy a new phone and get a new mobile number. Next, I went to the bank with my grandma and took all my relevant documents to convert my minor account into an individual account. I was thrilled to finally have my own card, an account without needing anyone's permission. I reactivated my Instagram account to resume my crocheting business. My grandma was very supportive and even offered me a small space in her house to set up a makeshift studio. Just a week after moving out, I heard from relatives and old neighbors that my parents had thrown a party to celebrate their newfound independence. They were extremely happy to start their new family life free from the burden of having me around. They invited other child-free friends and posted numerous pictures of themselves laughing and drinking throughout the night without a care in the world. Initially, the news, stung by the fact that my own parents were celebrating my absence just a week after I left them showcasing their newfound freedom, was a stark reminder of how unwanted I had been in their lives. It felt like a cruel twist of fate. My dad's parents were also shocked to hear about the celebration gone, and they tried to reach out to me. They had been traveling a lot in their RV exploring the country, so it had been years since I had spoken with them. When they finally got my new number from one of my cousins, they immediately called me to ask about everything. I told them the truth about what had happened between me and my parents and how I had left home. They were horrified to hear about the abuse. They asked why I hadn't reached out to them for help, and I explained how my parents monitored my phone, restricting my communique to only a few friends and my grandma. This is when my dad's parents revealed that my parents never wanted me in the first place, but they had thought my parents had changed over the years after I moved in with them. They begged me to forgive them for not being there for me. They also spoke with my grandma, who told them about the various fights she had with my parents to protect me. After this, my dad's parents took it upon themselves to inform every family member about what my parents had put me through. Slowly, the news spread through my relatives and family, friends, and everyone started calling me and offering their support. I was surprised to see how sympathetic everyone was to my plight. Some even offered me monetary help, but I refused, telling them about my crocheting business and how they could help by spreading the word so I could get more clients. This is how my business started to slowly pick up. During this time, I was accepted into my dream college with a full scholarship. My life was finally about to change for the better. The college was not very far from my grandma's place, so I could visit her every weekend to spend time with her or work on my crocheting. My dad's parents decided to give me their old car, which needed some repairs but was manageable, making it easier for me to visit my grandma. One of my friends who worked for a local newspaper reached out to me and asked if she could write a story about me. There weren't many young entrepreneurs in our area who had their own businesses like mine, and she thought my story could inspire other youngsters to find their own path. After some consideration, I agreed to the interview. I didn't think it was a big deal since my business still needed a lot of work. But I hoped that if there was a kid out there like me stuck in a toxic environment, they would read my story and feel inspired. When my story came out, it felt surreal to see my own journey featured in the paper. It might have been a small achievement, but for the first time in a very long time, I felt proud of the hard work I had put into my business, despite all the difficulties. My grandma was extremely proud of me, and other relatives and friends started reaching out to congratulate me on this success. This was a new feeling, as my parents had never supported or complimented me on my hard work growing up. My parents must have read the story as well because they called my grandma to scream at her, accusing me of betraying them by going behind their backs. They demanded that I publicly give them credit for my business, since relatives had been criticizing them ever since they learned about their controlling behavior. They also insisted that I share my profits with them, threatening to take me to court. But my grandma firmly told them that I had done all the business under her roof so they could try going to court over it if they wanted, because they would lose. I was so angry at how my parents were behaving that I wanted to scream and yell at them, but I knew I couldn't do that. Instead, I organized a small celebration and invited my close family members and friends so we could celebrate the success of my hard work and business. Since I was going away to college, I felt like I deserved one last hurrah with people who genuinely loved me. We had a great time throughout the night. Of course, word spread to my parents, and somehow they got hold of my new number. They started texting me about how I was just an ungrateful daughter and how they wished they never had me. My dad even sent a long text about how he had spent his life providing for me. Yet here I was, wasting my money by celebrating with others. Was I in the wrong for having a party to celebrate with my loved ones, when my parents also had a celebration after I moved out? Update 1. When I posted my story on Reddit, I had no idea it would blow up in just a few days. I have seen my story on TikTok, and it scares me that my parents might find out about this. For my sake, please pray that they don't find out anything. As per the comments, I understand that many people want me to block my parents permanently, and I plan on doing exactly that. However, I do want to send them a final email telling them about everything they have put me through so they know exactly what I have been experiencing. I am not a doormat, as some of you have been calling me. I'm just a young person who had extremely toxic parents, and it's difficult for me to drop them. Society always teaches us that our parents always want the best for us, but no one ever teaches us what to do when you end up with toxic parents and how to cut them off. I understand if some of you blame me for letting my parents walk all over me, but please understand that I am young and learning slowly to stand up for myself. Update 2. Hi everyone. Thank you to those who have reached out to me with supportive messages and shared similar situations they have gone through. As I mentioned earlier, I did write an email to my parents. My grandma helped me pen down my thoughts more clearly. Here is the content of the email. Dear Mom and Dad, I've spent a considerable amount of time reflecting on our past, present, and the potential future of our relationship. It's with a heavy heart that I've come to the realization that for my own well-being and growth, I need to sever ties with you both. I have spent my entire childhood yearning for your love and attempting to meet your expectations, but for some reason, I was never enough. Over the years, I've worked tirelessly to understand the reasons behind your apparent dislike for me and to strive to be accepted into your lives. But you both never accepted me. From the earliest memories when Mom forced me to drink milk despite my allergies to the times, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Your actions have shaped my perception of how toxic our family is. Yet through it all, I held on hoping for a change, for a connection that never happened. Unfortunately, when I found solace and purpose in crocheting, thanks to Grandma's guidance, I thought it might bridge the gap between us. As I built my business, your attempts to undermine and control me only solidified my decision to break free from this toxic environment. Your insistence on claiming a share of my hard-earned money, threatening legal action, and attempting to control my celebrations only further highlight how toxic you all are for me. I want you to understand that this decision is not an act of revenge or an attempt to hurt you. It's an expression of self-preservation, a step toward building a life that is free from toxicity and filled with the love and support that every child deserves. I harbor no ill will toward either of you, but I need to prioritize my mental and emotional well-being. Thank you both for pushing me to become independent and for underestimating the potential within me. I wish you both the best in your future endeavors and hope you find happiness without me. I request that you respect my decision to have no further contact. Let us part ways amicably. I won't lie. I had tears while writing this email to my parents. I know I should be strong and remember all the bad things they have done to me, but it's so hard to cut off your parents. As children, we are conditioned to love them, and it's difficult to break free from that mindset. After sending the email, I blocked them everywhere. In a few days, I will be heading off to college, and I'm a bit nervous about it. My grandma and my dad's parents are going to help me move into my new dormitory. I'm excited about meeting new people and making new friends, to everyone asking. My crocheting business is doing well, and I won't quit it despite being in college. I love making unique designs, and this is my passion, so I will work hard to manage it alongside my studies. This is the only update I have for now. Update 3. Wow, it's been 6 months since my last update. I can't believe how much time has passed and how different my life is now. First and foremost, I am thriving in college. The classes are challenging, but I'm putting in the effort to maintain good grades. I know that despite my successful crocheting business, having a college degree will provide a safety net. I've also made some incredible friends in college, And thanks to them, I even get more crochet orders. College life has allowed me to explore new horizons and meet different people. It's a refreshing change from the isolation I felt back home. I even have a boyfriend now named Kyle. It's only been 2 months since we started dating, and we're still getting to know each other. He's a sweet guy, so we'll see how things go. Every weekend, I make it a point to visit my grandma. We continue to work from her makeshift studio to fulfill our crochet orders. The business is booming, and the positive response from our clients is overwhelming. It's amazing how pursuing my passion has provided not only financial stability, but also a sense of purpose and fulfillment. As for my parents, it's been a quiet 6 months since my heartfelt email. They haven't attempted to contact me. My grandparents informed me that my parents received a lot of criticism from everyone, so they decided to sell everything and move out of the country, likely seeking a fresh start. I don't know where they are, and truth be told, I don't really care. The fact that they chose to leave without any attempt at reconciliation or even a single apology speaks volumes. I genuinely hope they find happiness wherever they have gone and can pursue the things they have always wanted to do. It's time for me to focus on my own journey and continue building the life I have always dreamed of.
I want to express my gratitude to all of you who have been following my story and offering words of encouragement. Your support has meant the world to me. If there's one lesson I have learned through all of this, it's the importance of surrounding yourself with people who uplift and believe in you. Thanks to my grandma and friends who believed in me, I am where I am today. This will probably be my last update. Thank you, everyone.